Ladies and gentlemen, do you ever feel like your life isn't working? Like shit is going wrong? Like you don't really understand why everything is a mess around you? And then you go ahead and compare yourselves to people you admire, or maybe your friends, and some of those relatives we have. And then you feel like, well, their lives are all figured out. They're doing so well. And when you compare yourself to them, you feel like, well, your life is a total mess. Well, have no fear, because you're not alone as far as feeling that way. But I have a solution to that problem. That very, voice that's inside your head that's always whispering you're not good enough or you're not doing everything as perfectly as you ought to. And this is what I have for you. Or rather, this is the great formula I have brought for you. Read my lips. There is no formula. There is no apparent formula that can solve why shit isn't working, why your life isn't perfect. When you compare yourself, for example, to assuming you have political aspirations, to Barack Obama, and you think about how he went to an Ivy League, and you compare yourself being a student in the university and you're not in our very own Ivy League schools like Kenyatta University or even the University of Nairobi, or better yet, USIU. And then you feel like, well, I'm not good enough. I can't do the same thing he did. But like I said, of course, there is no formula. We are all made in our individual way, in a manner that allows us to project ourselves the way we are. So you find that your experiences are minor and mine are very different, but we might end up changing the world. But it's all about perception. Because think about it. Where did all these ideas come from? Where there is a specific way of doing things, there's a specific way of living life, there's a specific way of manifesting your truest form. And so you have to feel like you can or you should limit yourself to certain elements. That's the conversation I want us to have today. The conversation about how there is no formula. There is no formula that defines success. There is no formula that defines the greatness we can achieve or will achieve. It's all a matter of, well, I guess we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in depth. And we'll break that down today in a manner that allows us to understand our truest selves and the best way we can break that down. So think about this. Think about what we're talking about. The concept of there is no formula. So I want us to understand really what that means. What it means to have no formula. What it means to not walk the so-called conventional path that most of us are expected to take. But before we get there, I want us to talk about what is the conventional path? What is the so-called formulated way and conventional way of living our lives? So it always starts with, let's go to school. So once we're born, our parents get us to the age of 4. And once we are 4 years old, or younger to the few of us that went to school aged 3, myself included, they take you to school. And the expectation is that school is what is going to, so to speak, make you better. School is what is going to influence your mind and your capacity to wanting big things and attaining big things. It is always assumed that school is the foundation. I'm not discrediting school because we need concepts like society. The societal views and elements we borrow from school. We taught how to make friends, how to relate with authority, how to relate with our peers, how to relate with our juniors, far from, of course, the confines of our family homes and our family units. But there's always the perception that you're supposed to go to school. And once you go to school, there's the perception of once you're done with your primary school, you're supposed to go to a prestigious high school, the likes of Alliance High School, Alliance Girls High School, Maryhill Girls High School, the likes of St. Mary's Nyala. And you think about all of these things and how we are all expected to go to these schools, even though we have a local day school somewhere in your locality, even though there is a county school that could serve just the same purpose as that national school that you're so often told you need to go to. Of course, we make it to high school, and what is the goal that soon afterwards appears after high school? You ought to perform very well. Of course, the minimum cutout currently is get a C+. So you have to get a C+. That C+ is what will get you where? To the university. So the next step after you get to high school is go through the high school system, do your national examination, score anything above a C+, and boom, you're on to a great start in the great universities of our country. Of course, the few of us that are able to attain that C+, the C+ that gets you to university, ensures that you have access to a variety of university. We have the great Gretsa University, schools like Kenyatta University, Kirinyaga University, as many as, of course, you can think of. But now the essence of it is there's the conventional way, and the conventional way is apply in Egerton University, Kenyatta University, the University of Nairobi, Jomo Kenyatta University of Technology, if I am correct. Sorry, agriculture and what have you. I think it's called JKUAT. And when you think about this, we often forget small universities, the small universities spread out across our country. The great Kisii University, schools like Kabianga, schools like Kirinyaga University, schools like Embu University, often discredited for the likes of the Big Five. So when you think about this convention, when you think about the kind of expectations that are set for us, both by our schools, our families, and oftentimes even by ourselves, the metric is a bit too high. I'm not saying we cannot achieve these things, but what about the rest? Don't you think we're limiting ourselves? Limiting ourselves to the little that has been offered. Anyway, not to digress though. After you attain your grade to go to university, the few of us are able to get to the Big Five, and then the rest of us have to find our way around the rest. And then you have to go to university. And you're expected to do, of course, most parents have a preference for medical courses. Those of us that are not doing medical courses, we are thrust at being teachers. I'm not saying teaching is a bad career, but I think you guys understand what I am talking about. The pressure that comes from home, where you're not allowed to pursue the unconventional, of course, subjects. Fine, you end up in a university, you do your degree. Once you do your degree, what is expected next of you? What's expected is you graduate. Once you graduate, of course, the next expectation is you're going to land a very good job. And what does that actually mean? What that means is you get a very high-paying job. And of course, once you secure a high-paying job, the expectation is you start a family. Assuming you're a lady, you get a husband. Assuming you're a gent, you get a wife. And from there, you start getting kids. Once you get kids, you raise those kids. Once you raise those kids, of course, the next expectation is you retire. Once you retire, you're done for. This is the conventional way. This is what the world expects of you. What everyone, the society expects of you. The societal, as I was going to say, expectations for human life. And so we often find that the conventions, or rather these conventions, have been drilled into our brains from the day we discovered who we are, from the day we discovered we even exist. And they become the foundation or the foundational principles that build upon the pressure that surmounts within us. And you often find that the conventional way oftentimes deals very hardly on the few of us that were born unconventional. What do I mean when I say unconventional? Those of us that love the thrill, those of us that love a life that comes with no plan, a life that meets you, you don't meet it, a life you don't plan for, it plans you, a life where getting a family isn't all you want, a life where landing a job isn't all you want. Think about this. Think about how taking risks is an element that's so common to you. You want to try everything that has its own, risks to take, and with no guarantee. You prefer a life that's up in the air. I understand. I understand this because this is who I am myself. We are born to be unconventional, to want or to have desires that drive us ever more closely and further into wanting things that are so different from what everyone else wants. An element of ourselves that is so unique that we are so comfortable failing even though we try. And we keep trying even when we fail, and we don't let that ever stop us. And finally, the unconventional way is a way that demands that we endure pain. A pain unlike anyone else, of course, or rather put, a pain unlike the normal people go through. What do I mean by normal people? People with a desire to be conventional. Fine, I get it. I sound very off right now. I sound like I am not speaking for the things that are often spoken for or spoken about. But what's the point? What's the point of me sitting here and telling you, bro, you should have landed a job by now? What if your way is becoming an entrepreneur? What if your way is becoming an artist? We're not always perfect. So I want us to break down individuals who've done, or rather who've lived their lives in an unconventional way. And I don't want us to go too far away. I don't want us to trek as far as Europe or somewhere like London with the great artists like Lord Byron or the painter Michelangelo, or a man commonly known to our generation, Leonardo da Vinci. I want us to come home. And where is home? Here, Kenya. We find individuals who've lived a life that is so unconventional and so completely unrelatable to the majority of us that it's hardly believable the people they've become. The people who've sought to live life the way they wanted to live it. Because that's who they were. That's who they still are to those of them that are still alive. And that's what I want us to talk about. How we can emulate such people. How we can be these kinds of people. How we can break off the yoke that builds pressure within ourselves and find our truest forms within our hearts and within this conscience of our minds. In our conversation of very uncontroversial people, I want to start with the line most common to Kenyans, ladies first. So I want to start with a lady that is well known in the country, a lady who has unsurmountably made quite a remarkable achievement, and that is Tabitha Karanja, the founder of Keroche Breweries, the woman who's made it a new thing, or rather the woman who's founded a company that produces 600,000 bottles of alcohol on a daily basis. That sums up to around 10 million barrels of alcohol every year. In a company that's doing exuberantly well in this country. Think about how many privately owned alcohol manufacturing countries are in this country. So she is, of course, a remarkable woman, a woman deserving to talk about. And when you look at her history, this is a woman who was born in a family of 10 children with parents, a father who was a driver, and a mother who was a farmer. And you think about how she strove in her life to put in the work, doing very well in her studies, as far as getting to a point where she got her business administration diploma and going as far as securing an accounting clerk position in the Ministry of Tourism in the government of the late His Excellency Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi. And when we talk about her story, one of the few things that I found to be worth noting about Tabitha is the fact that when she married her husband, Mr. Joseph Karanja, she left her accounting clerkship position in the Ministry of Tourism, and together they started a hardware business in Naivasha town. And think about how Later on, a few years later, they closed shop, or rather they shut down their hardware to enter into the wine manufacturing business. Not a very common business in this country, because think about how in the Moi regime, how many people actually bought alcohol in that era. Better yet, how many people bought wine, good quality wine? Not very many. So you think about how she's entering an industry that's not very common to the country, that's not very common to the business people of the day, and she's still taking a huge risk. Of course, later the wine business would fail because of taxation. It is my understanding the Kibaki government had raised very high taxes on wine manufacturers in the country, so she entered the beer business. And in a span of less than 7 years, she had built a portfolio of around 5 billion Kenya shillings, making Keroche Breweries one of the largest alcohol manufacturing businesses in the country. And think about this. Tabitha Karanja is a mother of 4. Think about the challenges that come with balancing between having 4 children and being the CEO of one of the largest businesses in our country. Think about the challenges that come with some of the lawsuits we've been seeing over the years that Keroche Breweries has been experiencing. Of course, when you think about all of these aspects, they make Tabitha Karanja a truly unconventional woman. Think about all the risks involved. Think about her desire to want to be different, her desire and her appeal to want to lead, even though there was a man present who could take up that hold. This makes her obviously a woman worth talking about, a woman who's gone beyond the limits of there is a formula. Because when you think about how many women at the time took some of the risks that she took, some of the leadership roles that she has gone ahead to take up, not very many. So of course, I'm dying to hear in the comment section what you guys think about Tabitha Karanja, but in my opinion, she's truly a fascinating woman. On to our next character of the day. No man is limited. A catchy line known in the entire world. A saying by a man called Eliud Kipchoge. A man who was once a small boy in an unknown village in the county of Nandi. A boy who would later become one of the best marathon runners in history. A boy who would later be known for running a marathon in less than 2 hours. If I'm correct, it was 1 hour 59 minutes. Of course, these things make him exceptional. But I want us to break down what makes his entire journey unconventional, or what makes him align with the line, there is no formula. So when you think about the life of Kipchoge, Kipchoge is the son of a single mother. Think about the isolation that comes with Nandi County. Think about being the son of a single mother and the poverty that comes with a situation like that in an isolated county like Nandi. But he didn't let that stop him. And one of the things that stand out about Eliud Kipchoge is from a very young age, he knew he wanted to become a marathon runner. And so he began to prepare early. And so the minute he begins to run, he decides it's going to become his life. He sets his sight on making this something big. And he decides he's going to use it to make himself so big that not just the county of Nandi will recognize his prowess and talent, but the entire country. And not just the entire country, but the entire world at large. So think about a man who set himself up to break a record that had never been broken before in the history of the world. It's amazing and it's crazy how unconventional that is. Think about the risk that comes with his reputation, having decided he's going to challenge the system and the conventions that running a marathon in less than 2 hours is an impossibility. But he began all of this in Nandi from a very young age. So at the age of 16, he begins to make a name for himself. And at the age of 18, he's renowned nationally. And by the time he goes past the ages of 18, he begins to run marathons beyond this country, to the point where he was winning medals as of the year 2003 moving on forward. So when you think about a man like Eliud Kipchoge, you think about a man who didn't just think about how he could go to school, get good grades, go to the university, and consequently land a job. I'm not saying, again, these things are wrong or bad, but it goes to speak for how unconventional he is, how he didn't let the monotony of the day or of the age stop him from becoming what he had decided he was going to be. And this is the kind of reason we need to adopt among our people, in our generation, the distinctive understanding of self, an understanding of self that is so complex that it surpasses any limitation that have been set up in a system or by any individual whatsoever. And this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. So our next character, I want us to talk about a young man. A man so young, I don't think he's 25 years of age by the time I'm doing this video. And this young man is a young man by the name Bennyhin Walubengo. The young man who would publish his first book aged 19. A young man who would form his first company aged 20. A young man who would begin to make a name for himself before he even turned 22. And today he rubs shoulders with the great and the mighty of the land. So when I talk about Bennyhin Walubengo, it's a bit interesting for me. First thing first, he is an alumni of a school I went to, the Great Embu High School. And what is so interesting about this young man is how he was able to pull himself up from the bottom. Because think about this. This is a 21-year-old who has started a company. It's called Double B Consultancy. He has a non-profit organization by the name I Speak that influences young people to become better communicators, better public speakers, and better leaders. This is a young man who has been able to partner with men as great as Mwenda Thuranera, a titan of real estate in our country today, before he could even get his first degree, because it is my understanding he's a student of Daystar University pursuing international relations and diplomacy. So when we think about this young man, we think about how not very many people have been able to start a company aged 20. Not very many people have been able to start a company, a non-profit organization, and still not have their degree, or rather still be aged 20. Let's talk about how Bennyhin Walubengo has had trials at his national examination, having done it a couple of times. And this is a young man who decided he was not going to be limited by the institutions of the day. Because you think about our country, Kenya, there are not a lot of young people who have started companies aged 20. There are not a lot of young people who wrote a book aged 16 and decided to publish it aged 19. There are not a lot of young people who have been able to secure partnership, contractual partnership with men as great as Mwenda Thuranera or the Great Compassion International. And you break this down and you think about how unconventional it is, and it just surprises you. It surprises you how, when I think about men who've done great things aged 20, I think about men as great as Napoleon, the great general who tormented Europe to the point of he had wars named after him. I mean, so when you think about unconvention, deciding not to be limited, these are the perfect examples of people when it comes to how we break the yoke of convention, how there is no specific formula to how we do things. And I'm not asking you to be like Tabitha Karanja, to be like Bennyhin Walubengo, or to be like Eliud Kipchoge. No, I am not. I'm simply asking you to be the best version of yourself you can be, to allow yourself to understand yourself for the things you're good at, the things you feel you want to pursue, and the things you know in your heart carry great weight. Because it doesn't matter who supports you. You don't always need your parents to back you up. Because, I mean, you're a Gen Z. You're a profound representation of how different as young people we can be. You're a representation of how unsurmountingly great we can be. In small spaces, in big spaces, in middle income spaces. Because that's where we are all fitting in. Because at the end of the day, these older generations, we're going to replace them in every sector. So it's upon you to decide to start making yourself different, to start putting in the work, to start making small steps. And I say this everywhere I go. I talk about the need to put in the work, to begin to specialize in areas that are important or significant to us. Because whoever thought a young man who's 20 could make communications, or rather the aspect of communication, a business endeavor? Whoever thought that running from point A to B could be something of value of substance? And then again, think about alcohol. How often do we tend to look ourselves in the mirror and think to ourselves, I can start a breweries company, even though this is not a sector that people like me can dominate? How many young people are we seeing selling alcohol? Because when you think about women, well, Tabitha did that for her generation. Think about how many women were in this sector when she began. Very few. But these are people who've decided to step up, people who've decided to represent something new for themselves. And this is what we want our kids to be proud of. To be proud of the fact that this was the way, but we built a way for ourselves. This was the norm, but we built a norm for ourselves. This was the system, but we created a way for ourselves to fit into this system, even though it's not who we were or it's not where we belong. And this is what I believe we can make our generation about. We can make our generations and the systems we build about making the things that are valuable today, conventional today, unconventional to us. That we can build from scratch a new way of looking at the world, a new society of a boundless possibility, where giving up is not a solution, where we wake up and decide to use the things that are valuable to us and we make them the way we live our lives. And so I was thinking about this, and I've been thinking a lot about this concept, about the concept of there is no formula to how we do things. And this is what I came up with as far as helping us build from that point. I came up with a concept I like to call embracing the journey. Embracing your journey of life, embracing yourself as an individual, embracing the truth of the deepest person that you are. And I have a couple of steps through which I'll take you through that guide me as an individual as far as embracing my journey and, well, not being under pressure from the externalities that are ever much around us. And one of this is ceasing to care so much about other people, or rather ceasing to compare yourself with other people. And we often find this in social media, where maybe you're on TikTok and it's a socialite and they're doing extraordinary things. The other day I was sitting with my friends and we watched this lady post on TikTok that on Valentine's Day her boyfriend bought her a Land Cruiser V8. And I'm thinking to myself, my God, this young lady is young, and her boyfriend is probably young too. And of course the pressure is bound to build up. But when you stop comparing ourselves to other people, we often find and have an easier time at doing. And in a generation where social media is our to-go place, we often find that the comparisons begin to build in our heads. And when they build in our heads, they begin to build up a pressure. And this pressure begins to translate in our hearts. And it becomes a huge problem. So the first step is just stop comparing yourself. Just focus on your path. Focus on walking, with your lane or in your lane, or specializing on the things you're already working on. Another thing is ceasing to worry about where other people are or where one should be, or rather where you are and where you should be and where other people are. What do I mean by this? What I am referring to is the aspect of, oh, my age mates are doing this, I haven't done that yet. Or I'll think about the fact that I'm doing a bachelor's degree in economics, how my classmates have probably started doing their CASNEB courses. Some of them are probably in CPA level 3. Then I start thinking to myself, oh, I haven't even started my CASNEB course. How will I ever catch up to them? No. You stop yourself right there and you begin to tell yourself, this is my journey, this is my life. What am I doing? Why am I doing it? Why have I decided to do it? And the minute you begin to understand that the things you're doing and why they're important to you, the pressure begins to break apart and you begin to find meaning and value in yourself and in the things you do. Something else I like to talk about is building on the everyday. Building on the bits, bit by bit every day you put in the work. Assuming, let's say you are studying, you dedicate at least 2 hours every day. Assuming you're studying finance, every single day you give that an hour or 2 hours by the end of the year, of course you're going to become an expert. Of course you're going to be on a whole new level. So you realize that the everyday progress usually builds up and it creates a tornado that becomes a backing point for your individual confidence. And this helps as far as making you a better person. This helps kill the pressure, and this helps you build towards becoming your own person the way you want to be that person. Something else I like to do myself is celebrate the little things. What do I mean by saying celebrating the little things? If you're prone to sleeping for 9 hours or 8 hours every day, and you decide you want to sleep for fewer hours and you want to dedicate at least 2 hours of that day doing something constructive, like maybe reading, the minute you start doing it, if you can successfully do it, or if you successfully do it for a week, I think you should take, maybe let's say you started on Monday, that Saturday or Sunday, hey bana, take yourself out and celebrate the fact that you've been able to do that for a week. Because when we celebrate the little progress, it becomes evident, or it stores itself in our memory. Because when you don't appreciate yourself for the little steps, you always find that those little steps become forgotten. The minute those little steps become forgotten, you begin to feel like you've not done anything to begin with. The minute you begin to feel like you've not done anything to begin with, that's where the foundation of feeling like you're a failure comes in. And so begin to celebrating the small steps. If you have a horrible relationship with your family members, when you start calling them, celebrate the fact that you've achieved a new milestone, however small it may be, and you realize it always makes the difference. There's something I like to call the currency of the heart. And the currency of the heart is the aspect where the things that are important to your heart, or the things that you value with your heart, you use that medium, or rather you use that as a source to fuel the effort you put in or the work you put in. For example, assuming you love to dance very much and you've come up with a TikTok channel and you are expecting, or rather in a few years you want to be on the levels of a person like Klaus or the Alpha House, you begin by letting your dancing come from the heart. Dance most oftenly when your heart is there, when you feel like you want to, shake your body or, move your body a bit. So let your heart be the foundation that influences what you do. For example, when I come up with these videos, I let it come from within me. I let it come from a point of expression of the truth that is within me. So you realize with the time you begin to master the concept of the currency of the heart, and it becomes something more complex. So very soon I'll talk about the currency of the heart on its own as its own video, but in the meantime, I think you're understanding the nitty-gritties of what that is. Well, to sum it all up, let us begin to appreciate your own journey, our own journey, our individual or individualized journeys, the way we live our lives. Let us begin to appreciate where we come from and some of the things we've accomplished, whether big, small, or medium. They all mean something and they all make the world a better place. And let us center ourselves to the concept of the road isn't always straight, the challenges are always there, and haba na haba hujaza kibaba. Small steps every single day, make that the best, and the minute you make your everyday the best, your whole week becomes the best, your whole month becomes the best, your whole year becomes the best, and your entire life becomes a success.